I never believed in monsters, not really. Not until I looked one in the eye. My name is Dr. Elias Vance, and I am, or was, a paleontologist. I'd spent my life in dusty labs and sun-baked excavation sites, piecing together the past from shattered bones. So when I got the offer to consult for a new eco-resort on a place called Isla Perdida, I jumped at it. It was a remote island, completely uninhabited, and supposedly rich with fossil deposits. The company wanted me to help them set up a small, exclusive research station to showcase their commitment to conservation. It was my dream job, a chance to work in paradise with a virtually untapped paleontological goldmine. The trip there was long, a small charter plane followed by a bumpy seaplane ride. As we approached, I saw it, a green jewel rising from the turquoise ocean, shrouded in mist and mystery. The pilot, a grizzled old man named Marco, just grunted. Isla Perdida, he said, Lost Island. They call it that for a reason. I just laughed, convinced it was a dramatic flair for the tourists. I had no idea how right he was. The resort wasn't built yet, just a cluster of prefabricated units and a main research hub. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and exotic flowers, a fragrance I now associate with pure terror. For the first few days, I was in heaven. I explored the dense jungle, marveling at the towering ferns and the strange, vibrant plant life. I found incredible fossil specimens, small dinosaur bones, fragments of ancient eggs, and a species of prehistoric reptile I couldn't even identify. The whole island felt alive with history. But then, things started to get weird. It began with the sounds. At night, the jungle didn't just hum with insects, it moaned. A low, guttural sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The other workers on the team, mostly construction crew and engineers, just chalked it up to strange birds or the wind. But I knew better. I'd spent enough time studying vocalizations in extant reptiles and birds to know this was different. This was a deep, resonant rumble, something powerful and ancient. Then, things started to disappear. Tools, food supplies, even a small generator. We initially blamed each other, thinking it was just a prank or a disgruntled worker. But the disappearances became more frequent and more unnatural. We'd find things just gone, without a trace, as if swallowed whole by the jungle. One morning, the team's foreman, a man named Javier, came running into the hub, his face pale with fear. "My toolbox," he stammered, "I left it right by the truck last night. This morning, I found it up in the trees. Smashed. Like something just threw it." We dismissed it as a bear or a wild boar, but I knew. Isla Perdida was home to no large mammals. The island was supposed to be a pristine, isolated ecosystem. My gut twisted with a sickening feeling, a feeling of being watched. One afternoon, I was exploring a ravine, a place the locals had named El Garganta del Diablo, the Devil's Throat. I was mapping out a particularly rich fossil bed when I saw it. A footprint. It was massive, three-toed, and with a familiar, terrifying shape. My heart hammered against my ribs as I knelt down. It wasn't fossilized. It was fresh. The mud was still damp, and a small pool of rainwater was slowly seeping into the depression. It was the footprint of a theropod. A big one. I scrambled back to the camp, my mind a whirlwind of scientific denial and primal fear. It had to be a hoax. A worker playing a sick joke. But the look on Javier's face that morning flashed in my mind, and I knew. This was real. I grabbed my camera and ran back to the site, my hands shaking as I took dozens of pictures, measuring the stride, documenting everything. The prints continued for a while, leading deeper into the jungle, towards the mist-shrouded peaks of the island's interior. I knew I should have turned back. Every ounce of my scientific training told me to stay put and report my findings. But my curiosity, that deep, insatiable need to understand, overpowered my common sense. I followed the tracks. They led me to a cave hidden behind a waterfall, a cavern so ancient it felt like the very beginning of the world. The air inside was humid and thick with a strange, organic smell, like wet fur and decaying meat. I flicked on my flashlight, its beam cutting through the oppressive darkness. The walls were covered in phosphorescent fungi, giving the cave a sickly green glow. And then I saw them. Not fossils. Bones. Fresh ones. Scattered across the cavern floor were the skeletal remains of goats, pigs, and even a few human bones, their white surfaces stripped clean. A shiver of pure dread ran down my spine. This wasn't a hoax. This wasn't a joke. This was a nest. I heard a sound then. A low, wet snuffling. I spun around, my flashlight beam dancing across the cavern. In a small alcove, something shifted. Two eyes, large and black as obsidian, opened in the darkness. They weren't reptilian, they were mammalian, but with an intelligent, predatory gleam. The snuffling grew louder, a deep, raspy intake of breath. My heart was a drum in my chest as the creature emerged from the shadows. It was a dinosaur. Not a lumbering brontosaurus, but a sleek, muscular predator built for speed. It stood on two legs, its body covered in dark, almost iridescent scales. It had a long, whip-like tail for balance and powerful hind legs. Its forelimbs were small but ended in three razor-sharp claws. Its head, however, was the stuff of nightmares. It was long and narrow, with a mouthful of jagged, serrated teeth. But it was the eyes that froze me. They were intelligent. They were hungry. And it was not alone. From the shadows on the other side of the cave, another one emerged. And another. There were 5 of them in total, their low growls echoing off the cavern walls. They weren't just living, they were hunting. They were a pack. And I was their dinner. I dropped my flashlight and ran. The cave entrance seemed a million miles away. I could hear them behind me, their heavy footfalls shaking the ground, their guttural roars filling the air. I burst out of the waterfall, my lungs burning, and plunged into the jungle. The roar was deafening now, not just a sound in the dark, but a physical presence. I could feel the ground trembling under their weight. I didn't look back. I just ran. I clawed my way through the dense foliage, the thorns and vines tearing at my clothes and skin. The air grew thick with a metallic stench of the smell of blood. I heard a scream, a human scream, cut short by a sickening crunch. The pack had found one of the workers. I ran until I couldn't breathe, until my legs felt like they were made of lead. I stumbled into the camp, just as the last of the construction crew was boarding a small boat, panic etched on their faces. "Marco!" I screamed, "Don't leave!" But they didn't hear me, or maybe they chose not to. The boat sped away, a tiny speck on the vast ocean, and I was left alone. The jungle went silent, a silence more terrifying than the roars. I knew they were there, watching, waiting. I had found the lost island, the lost world. And it was going to be my tomb. I didn't know what happened to the others, but I saw the blood on the rocks. I saw the snapped trees and the torn metal of the abandoned trucks. I have been on this island for 3 days now. I've hidden in the canopy, a place they can't easily reach. But the pack is always hunting, their shadows moving through the ferns, their low, chittering sounds a constant, terrifying symphony. I'm writing this down in my journal, a desperate, final act of a scientist. I have discovered something impossible, a truth that will die with me. The world isn't as it seems. Evolution didn't just happen once. Sometimes, it takes a detour. I can hear them now. Their calls are getting closer. A low, hunting cry, answered by others in the distance. They know where I am. I can't outrun them. I can't hide forever. My last thought, my last hope, is that someone, anyone, finds this journal. I want them to know what happened here. I want them to know that I looked a monster in the eye, and that it wasn't a fossil. It was a ghost of a lost age, and it was alive. And it's coming for me.